Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining in Social Care Disgrace on this Carers' Rights Day. Shortly, you will hear from carers in varying degrees and their stories. What are carers? Carers are anybody who looks after a family member, partner, or friend who needs help because of their illness, frailty, disability, a mental health problem, or an addiction and cannot cope without the support. Carers can be any age, any gender, any race, any sexuality, and some are disabled themselves. Many carers don't see themselves as carers and can take up to 2 years to acknowledge their role as a carer. 12,000 people in the UK become carers every day. That is 3 million people over the course of a year, while for around 2 million, the role comes to an end. Estimates put the number of carers in the country around 10 million, and that's conservative. Of those, just over 1 million are eligible for carers allowance, but only 900,000 are actually in receipt of it. It's a miserly £76.75 per week, the lowest benefit of its kind. You have to care for at least 35 hours a week to get it, and there is no extra if you'll care 24 hours a day, 365 days a week, a year. Anyone in receipt of income of over £132 will see their carers allowance disappear. That is 14 hours at minimum wage. Only one person in the house can claim it for one dependent. Carers save the government in this country an estimated £132 billion per year. Despite having gained a few rights over the years, carers remain amongst the most invisible, forgotten and overlooked group in the UK. Now, before I share everyone else, I'll share my own caring story. As I have now turned from being cared for to caring for someone else. As stated, it takes up to 2 years to realise that you're caring for somebody. I was diagnosed with MS in 2018, and at that stage, or up to that stage, I'd already started to struggle to do certain things. So invariably at that point, my 86-year-old mother became my carer. She used to come and clean, she used to cook my tea, she used to do so much for me. Look after the dog. And obviously she wasn't 86 at the time, but she was 80. So when it came to COVID, my mum had always been somebody who was always out there, wanted to be in and amongst people. She was in darts teams, dominoes teams, whist drives and all that sort of thing. She'd run youth clubs when she was younger. She'd worked full-time nearly all her life. When she retired at 65, she went back the following day part-time until she was about 70. She'd almost pretty much been out there. But COVID really, she didn't contract COVID, but it really knocked her for six because she suddenly stopped being around all these people she'd been around all her life. And we are a very small family. Thankfully, I only live around the corner, so she was kind of in my bubble. So we did still see each other, but most of it was from a distance. And obviously I was concerned that I didn't want to bring COVID to her either, and because of her age, and nobody wanted to bring it to me because of my autoimmune condition and what have you. So that kind of showed up quite a lot. And it also sort of ended up with me sort of taking her things rather than she bringing me things. And at times I struggled to do it. But she was never afraid to sort of jump in the car and go somewhere on her own, or, go to my sister's, it was like 30 miles down the road, or go shopping, or she just, She was never fazed by any of that. But following COVID and the fact that she was stuck at home, not being able to do those things, she just dwindled, I suppose. So when we were sort of allowed back into the big wide world, it was suddenly me. It was suddenly the boot was on the other foot. Admittedly, she's got a cleaner, so she didn't need me to do that. And I had a cleaner, but I've never been able to afford that cleaner since. For quite some time, I had to give that up during COVID, and I've never picked it back up again. So a lot of mine is just done as and when I can do it. But I now find myself in the position that if she needs to go somewhere, then it's me that's taking her. And obviously it's also a slow process because we're both as bad as each other. We're both hobbling around all day, either in a wheelchair or on a stick. And when I tried to get some support for her, or also some support for me, it wasn't available because neither of us were bad enough to warrant support. And we had family support. So I just kind of carry on. I just go on doing it. And she rings up and says, can you just, and I just do it. But she is still getting about to like dominoes and darts and things like that. But the shopping or anything like that, that's down to me. In fact, most things are down to me. Hospital appointments and things like that as well, which she has to have hospital appointments because she's got all sorts of things wrong with her as well. She doesn't walk very well. She's got stenosis of the spine, which is gradually crumbling by the day. But this last couple of weeks, I've not been very well myself. This sounds weird, but I don't really class MS as being unwell. But when I get something else on top of it, then that does knock me for six. And obviously exacerbates the MS symptoms. But I think the angle that I'm coming up from here is neither of us are actually bad enough to warrant care. However, both of our lives are somewhat stifled by the fact that we can't do things because we need somebody else with us. You know, I take her shopping and things like that, but if I wanted to go to an event or if I wanted to go out for the day or something like that, I'd have to have somebody to come with me. And I haven't necessarily got people that can come with me and do those things. So I just don't do those things anymore. And I suppose that's like her as well, because I have to be her support, but I can't support to the degree that she needs supporting. You know, I can't be there overnight. She does have a lifeline. Obviously, I have my contacts on a lifeline, but perish the thought that she actually falls and then I've got to try and pick her up. Well, I mean, I know you wouldn't necessarily try and pick her up, but you know, there are those scenarios. Perish the thought something happens to me and nobody can support me. So, yeah, the care system is just so outdated and is really not offering the support that it should be doing. And I don't see why, as a country, sort of like the sixth richest country in the world, why are we not supporting our carers? Why are we not supporting the people that need care to the degree that they should be supported? And this is why I campaign so strongly for end social care disgrace and a national independent care support and living service. Because I see that as literally the only way forward of how we can progress with anything and get any support going forward. And with ageing, obviously we've got ageing communities, people are living longer, but they're also living longer with horrendous long-term conditions, progressive illnesses that need support. And we need to be supporting people. And we most definitely need to be supporting carers more than ever. So, yeah, I'll now share the following from our carers. I'd just like to introduce Jane Cargill, who is our first speaker. Jane lives with two of her and supports two of her disabled sons. Welcome, Jane.
My name is Jane Cahill, and I jointly care full-time with my husband for our sons, Fraser, 31, and Elliot, 26. They live with us also, and together between them, they have autism, learning disability, and mental health support needs. So over the past 10 years, both have tried supported living options. Our youngest son, two different options, one sharing with his brother, and our oldest son successfully in one for about 6 years. But they had minimal one-to-one hours of support offered, so we stepped into the breach quite considerably. They need lots of repeated explanations, prompting, help with telephone calls and appointments, paperwork, daily living skills, and just generally accessing the community for social activities and just normal everyday events. They find making themselves understood very difficult. Several traumatic bereavements have contributed to their need for additional support, and this includes the death of our overnight respite carer who supported us when our younger son was still at home, suicide by a musician band support worker in the learning disability band that they both play in, the death of my older son's flatmate in a road traffic accident outside the flat, the death of a family pet, and the COVID era really caused significant deterioration in their mental health through lack of understanding and support. We weren't directly affected by COVID, fortunately, but just dealing with the change in lifestyle and rules, etc., really caused a lot of difficulties. So you could really say that the role of carer crept up on us without us realising the significant impact it was making on our lives. My mobility decreased due to arthritis, and my husband gave up working away from home to look after us all. We do not have any extended family available for support, and we are not visible in our community as carers unless we repeat our situation over and over again to many people. So I write an intermittent blog called mykindofworld.co.uk. In December 21, I reached rock bottom on Christmas Eve and was quite literally begging for help due to poor communications and no response before crisis was reached. Following the death of our respite carer and change of service, our allocation for respite had been cut in half to 28 nights per annum for our youngest son. And although good, it had very limited flexibility due apparently to demand and the amount of resources available in our area. Currently in the UK, respite can be accessed through a community care assessment for the cared for person as part of local authority duties under the 2014 Care Act, and if the situation meets the eligibility criteria for a service. I won't go into lots of detail, but the public should be aware of just how much this process can vary and be subject to delay and poor communication with the family, causing undue stress. A good respite offer is unique to all individual family situations and can make the difference to the carers in continuing to offer care to a loved one. So our situation is very variable, and we have finally negotiated some respite through personal assistance particularly for our oldest son, who returned to live with us full-time last year, and also increased overnight respite for our youngest son, but this is in two different locations. So we've had to work very hard to access this, and we consider ourselves to be lucky within the system, but it has been a battle all along. So we are down but not out, disabled, not defeated. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I'd now like to introduce Jo Walton, who quite a few of you will be familiar with. Jo is a carer for her daughter, Sarah. Welcome, Jo.
Hello, friends. I'd like to talk to you about carers and rights. I would like very much not to have the credentials to address either, but here I am. My name is Jo Walton, and I'm a 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year carer for my 44-year-old daughter. I did not ask for the task, nor did I volunteer for it. The task, which is equal parts painful and filled with love, is stressful physically and mentally. It isolates and creates new and unexpected friendships. How did I become a carer? It was quite late in my life compared to many of my fellow unpaid carer colleagues. I was enjoying a very rewarding career, the latest position being in youth justice. My children were grown. Sarah, the youngest, was a degree qualified midwifery student in London and enjoying her life to the full. She started to feel unwell, put her studies on hold and came home. Within 10 months, she was unable to move or speak and received all of her oral medication and food through an NG tube. A devastating neurological illness caused by the measles virus had ravaged her brain. That was 19 years ago. Since then, she's lived at home with me and her dad. I'm a prime carer, and her dad is the support, the chief cook and the bottle washer, and we've received a modicum of care worker support. Although I managed to return to work for a brief period on a part-time basis, with care worker support at home providing care for Sarah, the cover was so unreliable that I eventually took early retirement. I count myself fortunate to have been able to do that because although my work's pension is much reduced due to the part-time years and the early departure, at least it's something which many in my position just don't get. Unpaid carers are all but abandoned by the state, which takes advantage of them by some estimates by as much as £193 billion a year. The care system in this country is a disgrace, both for those receiving social and continuing care. I've lost my career. I've lost the retirement I had planned. I've been unable to spend the time I would like with my husband, my other children, and my grandchildren. And most importantly of all, I've lost the wonderful company and the smile of my precious daughter. Don't get me wrong, we still enjoy each other's company. Here she is. We're together 24 hours a day. But without the laughter and the enthusiastic discussion and banter. And she, of course, has lost her entire future life. But I'm here to talk about carers and rights. The right which would make my life so much better would be the right to succession plan for my daughter's care when I'm no longer able to provide it. Our paid carers were withdrawn by the private company which employed them during the first week of lockdown in 2020. We've had no support since. But I'm very aware of my creeping old age, and I want to train up a team to take over from me and to look after Sarah. Where she wants to be looked after, in her home here, which is held in trust for her use as long as she needs it. At the moment, that's not a possibility. Continuing care support is only provided year on year, not for the foreseeable future. Sarah's care is not going to change. Her complex care requires professional staff who understand her individual needs. They need to be trained so that they can then go on to organically train others. Sarah, as a person needing 24/7 nursing care, and we, her unpaid carers, should have access to this as a right. My living nightmare will then end, and I will be able to die at least knowing that she'll be properly cared for, as well, if not better than I have. Thanks for listening, and join our campaign at endsocialcaredisgrace.org.
Now I'd like to introduce Anna. Anna's going to tell you the journey that she went through with her son, Marcus. Welcome, Anna.
My name is Anna Rose. My son's name was Marcus, and this is our story. Marcus was a remarkable man. I say was because he tragically lost his life just over a year ago, leaving us bereft. This is for another story. Today, I want to talk about Marcus's life and what he and we, his family, sacrificed because of the way we do things in our country, where severe disability is concerned. Marcus was a beloved son and family member and a member of the British public. Only he wasn't fully the latter. He was too hidden most of the time. Only a few people knew him, and they spoke of the privilege. He was a very special character who some said changed the way they saw the world. Marcus was born with several conditions, meaning he was severely learning disabled and never developed speech. He also had the misfortune to be born into a family with considerable problems. Our marriage foundered under the weight, and I and the children ended up escaping violence to a black hole. Children's father didn't support them, and I had no qualifications for earning a living. With two small children, one with severe disabilities, life on benefits in inadequate accommodation was very tough. But how to escape? Long story short, London was short of teachers and was providing part-time trainings to entice people into the profession. A new life began, but a life very unsuited to a child with considerable extra needs. I found a succession of solutions, from babysitting, but I wasn't permitted to earn enough alongside training to cover the full cost, to a friend fostering Marcus for a while. She received 28 times my allowance for him. To the horrors of a long-stay hospital. What did that cost? To a promising home which proved not to match its promises, to further times in long-stay hospitals, to finally, as a young adult, emerging to live in the community in his own home with 3 other young men. So although this last was a major development with associated day provisions, the community never developed to meet the needs of this group, to join in and become proper members of the society in which they now lived. Then came the cuts, and so much was gradually taken away from them, yet still they cost a vast amount of money. All these changes meant I spent periods of weeks, months, and often years fighting for his needs to be met, all whilst trying to hold down a demanding job, visit Marcus regularly, and give some kind of childhood to his sister. So my point is, for considerably less than what the country decided it would provide for Marcus elsewhere, he could have remained at home with a generous and enabling package of support. As it was, had he remained at home, we would have remained on benefits and my children would have gone without almost everything. We may not have survived this reality. So Marcus paid an enormous price, and we, his family, paid the price of missing out on him being with us and of compromising every area of our lives due to the demands of caring for Marcus in light of dealing with the sheer complexity of services and their vicissitudes. What would have made a difference? It's random potluck who bears a child with significant disabilities or whose relative friend acquires a disability. So first of all, if disabled children and adults and their carers are to be considered full members of society, we need to actively recognise our collective responsibility for the support needed. Creating the will is the first step. With such recognitions, carers require, I think, the following 3 areas to be addressed. National and local government, structuring placing care needs of all categories of disabled people at the heart of thinking, planning, decision-making and cross-referencing in every department, with evidence giving and documentation open to public scrutiny. 2, coordinated structure for services, resources and roles. Introducing A a requirement to build a system for coordinated services and resources for disabled people within each geographical area with one-stop shops. Legalise the role of family friend carers as equal partners with professionals, with documentation required to show how this has been facilitated and enacted. C, someone, like a family key worker, other than the carer, to be responsible for coordinating all parties involved and having an oversight of everything for the disabled person and carers, with training and conditions of service sufficient to encourage long-term continuity, to relieve carers and reduce the inefficiencies through reducing organisational and inter-organisational ignorance. 3, financial provision. Introduce the idea of a pot of money up to a certain amount for each disabled person based on their properly assessed needs by a suitably qualified person with no vested interest, to free up decision-making about who provides what care. Care is an act of love, and it is a skilled job that needs commensurate training, salary, and conditions of work, whoever is doing it, to avoid various forms of exploitation and maximise well-being and inclusion. My and Marcus's lives would have been immeasurably different had the above been in place. The reality of exhaustion and depletion and the legacy of guilt and regret would have been immeasurably different.
Thank you for watching this video on Carers' Rights Day. Would appreciate if you could share, like and subscribe. It will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and it will also be snippets will be shared to our social media. So yes, thank you for watching.